The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to the Factor Uncensored. Good to see you, John Starling. You got on the cheap shoes, right? All right. Keep it real. We have a great show planned for you, and we always start off with some very important issues to the community. Welcome to the Factor Uncensored. We address important issues like domestic violence nonstop here on the Factor. Tonight, we have more out of Spring, Texas. Harris County officials are searching for a murder suspect, Dimitri Humphrey. He's accused of shooting Spring teacher Shantavia Reddick and her dog to death Saturday morning. According to police, Reddick had the best of intentions. Her friend was in an alleged abusive relationship with Humphrey, and she was trying to help her friend escape that abusive relationship. According to the Texans Council on Family Violence, 204 people died from domestic violence in 2021. 44% of those victims took steps to end abuse, and family and friends and bystanders were also victims as well. 22 relatives and associates were killed that year. Joining us to talk about it, Thesia Jenkins, the training director for the Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, Maisha Coulter, the CEO of Aid to Victims of Domestic Violence and Domestic Violence Survivor, Jamie Wright, and Lady Gail. Glad to have you all here on the Factor Uncensored. So first, Lady Gail, where are you?
Yes, sir.
Right there. Tell us about dealing with domestic violence, and are you ever concerned about bringing family members and friends into that situation? Because you know, if this person is violent with you, he has no feelings whatsoever for the other people, and they could end up dead.
Correct. Like
we saw here in Spring.
Yes, I'm very concerned about getting involved in domestic violence relationships with other people or whatever, because what you need to do is have your plan before you get involved with domestic violence with other people. You need to have a plan. You need to know specifically how the boundaries, how far you're going to go, and be able to point that person to resources that can help them. Because the abuser, there's no boundaries when it comes to the abuser, and they will, you know, retaliate against anyone that stands in their way.
And Maisha Coulter, for those who are wondering, how important is that plan to get away?
Safety planning is 100% the most important and critical thing that anyone who's trying to leave one of these relationships can do. You heard the statistic that 44% of the people who were killed in 2021 as a result of intimate partner violence were killed after they had already left. Leaving is a dangerous time, and not having a plan that will prioritize your safety and the people around you is really what puts you at even a higher risk for harm and ultimately for fatality.
And Jamie, when you take a look at this situation, what we saw in Spring with this teacher, your thoughts about that?
After I overcome the deep sadness being a survivor myself, it pushes me to use my voice to raise awareness even more, especially in historically marginalized and underrepresented communities.
And to see someone who just wanted to help a friend. And so many people have those family members and friends who are willing to put their lives on the line, but they don't know they're putting their lives on the line. They think they're going to intervene and it'll be simple, right?
Absolutely, and that's why the conversation is so important, and I appreciate you forever for using your platform, because it's about the safety planning. It's about the awareness, because we just don't know. We just want our loved ones or the people that love us as survivors to be safe.
And Ms. Jenkins, what would you tell family members who are on the verge of getting involved and like, oh, I'm about to go put my clothes, I'm gonna put a stop to this? It's not that easy.
No, it's
Emotions are high, and it's one of the most, one of the deadliest situations for law enforcement officers. So let alone you think about a family member or a friend trying to intervene, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Definitely. And so it brings to the question about safety planning even for family and friends. And Jill Davies, who is an expert in safety planning, that is one of the things that advocates are trained on. It's not just about having an extra set of clothing, extra birth certificates. It's really looking at the dangers when someone decides to leave an abusive relationship. And one of those factors, Isaiah, is about relationships and the importance of also doing the safety planning in conjunction with what we call the danger assessment, because that helps us to get into the mind of the person who causes harm. And if they've made threats towards family, if they have access to that survivor in that relationship, all of that has to become a part of the safety plan.
And Maisha, for family members who find themselves essentially beside themselves because they want to get involved, they want to save their loved ones, what would be your best advice to them on how to handle this situation?
So we give them 3 R's. Recognize the danger and the risk to your loved one. Respond to that danger, but make referrals. So referrals are to people who have the professional skills to help get someone out of the dangerous situation. One of the things that we highlight is a bystander who's a family member. Most of the time, the intimate partner knows those people.
Right.
So going to your mother's house or your aunt's house is not the safest place to be. He knows those people. He knows where they are. You probably need to be in a shelter, in a hotel, out of town. All kinds of things need to be thought about as it relates to the individual's particular circumstances so that ultimately they survive leaving. Because again, leaving is that dangerous time and it's critical. So we talk about responding, and responding just means continue to support them, continue to support their need to get out of that situation. Sometimes it's frustrating for family members. They are tired of hearing about or seeing that danger being put on their loved one. And so they want to do something. Like you said, get up and go, let me get my stuff and I'm going to go over there. But if it's dangerous for law enforcement who are trained and who are armed,
Right.
and they wind up succumbing to dangerous situations and dying, then no civilian should be engaging in this independent of a lot of support. And fortunately for Houston, we have lots of support providers, and people just need to learn about who they are and where they are and give that information to their loved ones so that we can help them get out of these traumatic situations.
Absolutely. We'll continue this conversation in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We continue our discussion on domestic violence tonight, a very important issue. Our guests are back for this conversation. Glad to have you all here on The Factor Uncensored. When we talk about this case here in Spring and just how impactful it is, and my point I want to get across to family members, because they can't help themselves. They want to get involved. They want to save their loved ones, their family members, and so they will put their lives on the line, but they don't know it. So what would you tell, Lady Gil, someone who's trying to get involved and you know it may be dangerous for them?
They need to call the proper authorities. They need to call the police. Don't try to handle it or go there by yourself. And I mean, like you said, emotions can be very high, and we don't think when we are emotional. I mean, that's my child or that's my sister. And so you need to get the authorities involved. Don't just take off on a tangent, because somebody will get hurt, and it could be you. You could lose your life.
Absolutely. And Jamie, for those who are wondering, and I still want to bring this point across, if they will beat them, if they will abuse them, they will kill your mother because she has less value, even though that's your mother who's trying to save you, trying to get involved.
Absolutely. And I think that begs the question to flip the question of, a lot of times we are heard as saying, why do we stay? But there's something to be said about asking the person that's causing harm, why are you causing harm? And I think I think as a community, we can benefit from starting to ask that question, why are you causing harm? And then maybe a mother, a friend, a cousin won't be in a position to have to risk their lives to save someone that they love.
And Maisha, for those who are wondering, we keep talking about the plan, the plan. So where do you start with that plan if you just don't know what to do? If you don't have the finances, he's in control of all of the money.
Yeah.
How do you start that plan?
Okay, so for me, we start with simple things. If you have a friend or a family member that you can rely on to help you get out of that situation and you can stay with them, that's great. but there are places that are equipped to handle these situations with real resources. ABDA, my organization, we actually help people to get out of the relationships, get protective orders, get divorces, get child custody, child support, at no cost to them, because we're real lawyers who go into court and help them to get out of these relationships safely. And that's sometimes why people stay. They don't want to leave their children. They don't want to fight about the children. They feel like they don't have the resources to be able to go against an abusive partner because they're not the person who earns the money or the primary earner in a relationship, or he's controlling the money and those dynamics. So there are places to go, people who are equipped to help you. Do not feel alone and isolated. And again, family can come and help and walk alongside you, but you have to do it yourself, and you have to make that decision to do it, and you have to be firm in the fact that there are resources, and you just have to keep going with those resources. Don't give up, but know that they are there, and they exist for exactly this reason.
And TCA, a lot of people don't realize when they're being abused, whether, you know, it's not, sometimes it's physical, it's mental, and they don't realize that they have become the victim. What would be a good telltale sign that you are now a victim of abuse without having fists put on you?
What I've often heard survivors tell me in 27 years is that I felt as though I had lost complete control of my life. The simple ability to even go in and decide what you're going to cook for breakfast. Being able to go to the bank and to withdraw or to use Cash App. If you do not have those simple decision-making abilities in your relationship, that may be a red flag.
All right. We want to thank you all, and we appreciate your time and giving the community the information they need to be aware of what's going on. And family members, be careful. You don't want to end up like this teacher, a horrible situation.